Welcome to this episode. Today, I'm going to share one of my favorite tools that I use in my business and my personal life. So sit back, bring your journal with you, and see what comes up as we explore seasonal planning. So, what is seasonal planning? Let's begin by just going back to the foundations and the basics. Seasonal planning, as the name kind of explains itself, we work with the seasons. And we each have a relationship with each season. Depending on where you are, depending on who you are, we have a unique relationship with each season. And this is also how it affects us in terms of our emotions, in terms of our life journey and our life experiences, and also how we channel our energy outwards, whether once again, whether it's into a business or whether it's into personal projects that we're working on. And this has been a real game changer for me. As someone who used to really suffer from SAD, so seasonal affective disorder, especially end of summer, going into autumn, way back in the day in London, it's great anyway, but it just really used to depress me so much when I knew that autumn was coming. And when I started working on this whole concept of seasonal planning, it made me realize that actually each season has a beautiful intention behind it. If we work with the energy, if we work with our own energy, not what other people say the energy is, because my relationship to autumn might be very different from your relationship to autumn. And depending on where you are, the weather also affects how we feel, our mood, our energy levels. Depending on your schedule, maybe some times of the year might be more busier than others. For example, for me, autumn is when everyone comes back to work, basically, or to college, and I get more clients after a summer break. For you, it might be completely different. That might be your time out. So, it just really depends, we have to look at seasons in a very personal way. And that comes with our life experiences as well. Maybe we have certain memories, maybe we have certain experiences as we grew up that reminded us of certain times of the year. Also, depending on where you are in the world, the northern hemisphere is very different from the southern hemisphere. My autumn is your spring, depending on where you are. So, it gets very deep and very complex and very beautiful. And essentially, it is a reminder that if we use the energy of each season according to how we connect with that season, we can really make the most of it in terms of our planning, in terms of how we work on certain goals, in terms of how we use our energy, and how we nurture the projects that we're doing. So, with that introduction being said, I want to ask you to write a list right now, 4 seasons, starting with spring. Okay, so let's start with spring, summer, autumn, winter. Write that down in your journal right now. You can pause this episode at any time. But just to begin with, write down a section for each season. And then with each season, I want you to just put a few words down that describes that season for you. What does it bring up for you? How is your energy level during that season generally? Do you feel more higher energy? Do you feel like you want to rest more? Do you feel like your activities or your business starts to grow more? Or it can be personal, it can be business. So write down a few words. That's the first exercise. And then when you're ready, just have a look in general how the seasons flow together and how you connect with the seasons. For example, for me, I love the transitional seasons. So, for example, spring, autumn, those are my favorite seasons because there is this change in the air. And especially where I live, um, you can feel it. You feel it in the temperature, you feel it in the weather, you feel it in the way the leaves change. Uh, Also, just connecting to nature really helps us feel more grounded when it comes to each season. So have a look at the list. Have a look at some of the words that you wrote down. You might be writing it down right now as I'm speaking. And also include your local environment. Think about your local environment in each season. How would you describe it? Think about especially the nature around you. Even if it's a small tree uh, in the whole concrete jungle, which sometimes happens when we live in a big city. There's not that much nature as we would like to have. But still, nature really gives us those little hints about how we can use energy. So, what colors come up when you can think about your local environment? Maybe the trees and the leaves change. Or maybe it just stays the same the whole year round. I know a lot of my clients live in places where it's more or less the same temperature the whole year round. So they don't feel maybe the difference in terms of the external world, the nature around them, but they might feel it more internal. And that's a good question to ask you. Do you feel the seasons more on an external level? So the things that happen in your life, the things that happen around you, through nature, through your business, through your personal things, or do you feel it more internal? Again, this is a very personal thing. No rights or wrongs. Just take a moment to write that down. Bring awareness to what comes up as I say this with each season. You can pause this right now. And if you want, you can take your time just to write a brief list of everything that I just mentioned for each season, starting with spring, summer, autumn, winter. And when you're ready, I just want you to acknowledge that this is an awareness tool. The thing that we just talked about right now with this exercise is a huge awareness tool because you can start to really observe yourself and you can start to remember how you use your energy generally. And with that being said, you can start to think about the best times of the year where you can start channeling your energy outwards or nurturing your energy inwards. So I'll give you my personal example. And I think a lot of people might relate to this during the moon months. So that would be autumn and winter. This is a time where I live, it becomes much more colder and darker. So it's almost like an invitation to go within. And during that time, that's when I do a lot of the inner work on a personal level, but also on a business level, that's where I plant a lot of my seeds in terms of ideas. And usually it's like the backstage stuff. It's not the stuff that I would show people or showcase to the world externally. It's just projects that I personally would do in my routines. Because it's colder, I'm a homebody anyway. I like to stay at home most of the time. But during that time, I make myself really cozy at home and try and make it my creative zone. So I use those moon months of autumn and winter to become creative with new ideas, new inspiration. And actually, that changed everything. As I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, I used to suffer from SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and it used to bring me into like a winter blues depression. But once I started using this, those moon months became magical. And they still are a very magical part of the whole process of creating things in my life. And then during the sun months, solar months, so that would be spring and summer, this is when it tends to be more external energy. And remember, I'm just saying this on a general level. You have to look at your own personal connection to each season. But on a general level, spring and summer tends to be where we showcase, where we're more active. There's more solar energy, working more with the masculine energy. Lunar energy, the moon months, tends to be more the feminine energy, the creative energy, the inner depths, working with the lower chakras. The solar months, spring and summer, tend to be the more external energies. That's when we do our action. That's when we feel more playful. That's when we're out and about doing more things because nature tends to be much more warmer. Again, generally, this might be very different for you. So, once again, we add another layer to how we connect with the seasons. So take a moment to think about that. Look at your list again. Take a moment to look at each season and then break it down. So, autumn and winter, is there a connection between autumn and winter with the words that you wrote down or the thoughts that came up for you with autumn and winter? Is there a connection? And then look at spring and summer. Again, do the same thing. Just observe what comes up for you during that time and see if there's a pattern. Is there a connection between spring and summer? As a reminder, autumn and winter is the lunar months, working with the feminine energy, and the solar months are spring and summer. And usually, a lot of people find there is a connection with how we connect with those seasons. So I invite you now to make any observation notes. So, what would be that connection between spring and summer in your list? And what would be that connection between autumn and winter? The things that you described, the words that you used, even the memories that you might have written down about these seasons. What's the connection between autumn and winter and spring and summer? For me, this is really interesting because once you have that connection, you can also start to think about how you're channeling your energy outwards, how you're channeling your energy inwards. So if you do notice that there's a pattern, a very strong pattern, and a big difference between the autumn and winter months and the spring and summer months, this will give you an indication of where you should put more energy outwards or where you should take yourself inwards and start nurturing your creativity more. And once again, this can be in your personal life or your business life. And in business, this can be amazing because if you notice that one or two of the seasons are connected together, and you notice that you tend to have maybe slower energy, or you tend to be more creative, or you tend to feel like you're hibernating more, this would be an indication that those are the seasons that you can start working on initiating ideas, being more creative. As I said, do things behind the scenes instead of actually showcasing it on the stage. And the opposite is true. If you notice 1 or 2 months tend to be more high energy, or you feel more alive, or you feel like you're more playful, or you have higher levels of energy and you just feel like you want to go outside all the time, those would be the months that you can showcase your energy with projects. You can show people the results. You can start launching new ideas or launching new goals out there into the world with your clients. So you see how everything flows, how the year in itself is an invitation to look at how you flow. Now, on a practical level, let's break it down. Once you start noticing these patterns, we can start looking at each season and actually planning. So, this is where we get incredibly practical with our diary. We know which day will be the equinox. Okay, we know which day will be the solstice. Those are the markers of the beginning of each season. Okay, so we have autumn equinox, spring equinox, and you can look this up online for the location you're in. I will put a link in the description for that. And the same with the solstice, you can look that up and type in your location and find out which day it is exactly, and even which hour it is exactly. So once you have that in the diary, the beginning of each season, Then what you can do is you can break that up more or less into 3 months. So each season is roughly around 3 months, give or take. Okay. And as a general rule, I always say to people before a new season begins, give it up to 2 weeks before the equinox or the solstice to start setting those intentions. To start setting the intentions for what you want to bring into that season and what you want to work on. Again, this can be business or personal. If it's a business thing, maybe it can be a new project or a new online course that you're working on, or launching a new group coaching session or group coaching program, something like that, depending on what your health and wellness business is. So think about it. That those 3 months are a beautiful time to actually see progress. Each season has about 3 months so that you can work on that progress, whether it's on yourself or with clients. Uh, I always say it's a wonderful time, actually, if you're launching something, to work with the equinox or the solstice, work with the energy. And most of the time, your clients will feel that. They might not know consciously why they feel that it's the right time to start, but they will feel their own energy shifts happening, especially during these times, because these are very potent times of the year where we can tune in. And it's just nature's way of working with the cycles. So if you work on that way of launching projects or programs or activities or whatever it is that you like to launch, people automatically, I think, they feel drawn to it. That's just a bonus tip. I notice that in my own life when I work with the seasons, when I work with the energy of each season, people tend to feel it very deeply. And I get a lot of feedback of, oh, I don't know why, but it felt right to start during that time. Or I got the best results during that time. And of course, each client will also have their relationship with each season. So they might feel that in the beginning of autumn, they want to start something because they're more creative during that time. Or in summertime, they want to be able to use up their high energy. So, yeah, each season, start with the equinoxes, start with setting intentions around 2 weeks before so that you get prepared. And then, when you are doing the preparation 2 weeks before the equinox or solstice, think of it as those 3 months roughly. Take each month separately and work on one goal at a time. The first month will be a foundational goal of the project that you want to work on. And the second month is a progress, and the third month is a completion of that project. So we're taking it like a flow. Each month flows onto the next. You give yourself enough time to break it down into each month, working on one specific goal. And I always say it's great to work on one business goal and one personal goal, keeping it very simple. So, one business goal can be that you're writing up, um, if you're a health coach, for example, you can be writing an online group program. So, you can use that 3 months to start uh, really asking your community about what they feel about a certain project or what they would be interested in. That would be the first month. The second month, you can start actually writing and recording the material. So understanding your niche, understanding the research that you did in the first month, and then the third month you can start marketing and saying, okay, the beginning of the next season we're launching this coaching plan. So, those 3 months can be really good for you on a personal level to start preparing and then launching. So, as a conclusion, as a sum up of everything, as a summary of everything, each season we connect with on a personal level. So, work with your own energy, not what other people tell you autumn means or what winter means. Write down a list of each month. what it means to you, what memories come up, how your energy is, what do you normally do in your daily life, what your routines are like, and what your local environment is feeling like, especially nature. What does it make you feel when there are changes to nature? Secondly, look at the sun months of spring and summer, and then also look at the lunar months, so the moon months, which will be autumn and winter. See if there's a connection between those two. Whether you're more internal, where you feel like you're hibernating more, where you feel like you want to take more time for yourself, whether you want to be more indoors, or whether you want to be more outside, whether you feel more energy, where you feel like you want to celebrate and be with more people on an external level. So either it's internal or it's external. And then in your diary, write down each equinox and solstice that comes up. So there'll be 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices every year cycle. And before each one starts, 2 weeks before, think about the season that's coming up, break it down into 3 months, and work on one business goal and one personal goal. The first month will always be a foundational thing that you can do research in. You can start putting things in place. Second month will be about creating, progressing, putting the first action steps in place. And the third month will be normally about marketing, telling people what you're going to launch, and also sharing it with your community and finalizing everything. So by the time the season has finished, you have completed your goal in business or in your personal life. So I hope that made sense. I tried my best to break things down as simple as possible. But if you really want to see everything written down, please check the description where there will be a link to a blog post on this so that you can actually follow what I'm talking about. You can also try some of the journal inspiration questions so that you can really connect with each season on a personal level. I hope this inspired you to look at your year in a different way. Look at the year as an opportunity to work with the cycles of nature and how you connect with the cycles of nature and to make the most of it. Wishing you a beautiful day. I will be back with another episode very soon. Take care.